in one of those letters that this wonderful, wonderful pile of letters that he wrote to Mother. I guess he did a lot of business in Cuba, and actually, after they were married, he had taken her to Cuba, and he was considered. He was on the radio in Cuba, and he was considered to be the expert on trade or whatever that was. You know, it was long before Castro and all that kind of stuff. But how did I bring that up?
So, yeah, that would obviously have been before the crash and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And then he was very sick, and these operations were terrible. Excuse me.
So, and his associate running away with the money, that happened before the crash? Or
No, at the crash.
just at the same time?
At the crash, at the...
Because he panicked or whatever and ran.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then Daddy was sick, so he couldn't oversee anything. He was actually very ill for quite a while with this whole kidney thing. And then I never heard it said, but Banana said to me, then he had a nervous breakdown. It was at excuse me, at a time when many men, businessmen, were jumping out of the windows of skyscrapers in New York, where they just lost absolutely everything. I never heard that, and she might have made that up. She might not have, but there were at least 4 or 5 years there where he was unable to work.
Right.
So somebody had to step in, and that was my mother, and save the family, which she did. Now, she had not been a wimp at all. She was the oldest in her family.
Of how many siblings?
I think there were 6 children.
6.
Maybe originally 8, but I think maybe it was just 6. And she was the oldest.
And how many girls and boys were there?
There was Uncle Will and Uncle Ed, whom I did know, and Uncle Frank, who died. He became a Jesuit priest, and he died in the Spanish influenza of 1918 or 19. This is from a letter of Uncle Frank's to Mother. It does not seem so very long ago that we were all gathered together, perhaps in the library. And this is talking about their growing up, their life in Newport,
yeah.
Right? Having one of our concerts, perhaps in the upper hall, performing one of our masterpieces of original dramatic art. So I guess the kids all were having fun putting on plays and things together. With you making a brave attempt to interpret Maud Muller, or better still, kneeling together for the nightly rosary, making great efforts to keep away the Sandman. These are all most pleasant memories to recall of a very happy childhood. But in contrast to this, I cannot help seeing the remainder of that happy family now separated from each other, of course only by distance of a few hundred miles at the most, and I wonder what we would have thought 6 years ago if anyone should have told us all this would have come to pass. It is one of your special responsibilities now to keep up that former unity by writing, advice, and prayers. He was, at that time when he wrote it, he was in the seminary, becoming a Jesuit priest. And then in his work during the flu epidemic, he was helping take care of people, and that's when he caught the flu and died. But the mother had one or two siblings died. Catherine died when she was maybe 15. And Aunt Irene was the youngest of the family. Do you ever remember Aunt Irene? Yeah, the nun.
Right.
She was a wonderful, wonderful person. And then there was Uncle Bill and Uncle Ed, and they both were really very jolly, very nice, very kind people. They both lived on Long Island, I think.
And they married twins or something?
No. But they each married absolute duds of women, and they never had any children. And Aunt Madeline was Uncle Ed's wife, and Uncle Ed was just a love of a guy, and he was married to this pinched woman. And Aunt Helene was Uncle Will's wife, and Uncle Will had a great sense of humor, but she was kind of picky. They weren't fun, and the only times we ever saw them were at Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving, but Christmas and Easter, when they would come from Long Island and come to our house, and we would have a big meal together. But we really never, when I was growing up, well,
Right.
I mean, my family didn't entertain because we really didn't have money to.
Right.
But Mother always made sure that her brothers did come for the holidays, not to spend the night or anything. They'd just come on the train and then leave for the day. And then Aunt Irene would come to, she was a teacher. She was a Sister of Mercy, and she, in her order was a teaching order. So she taught in New Britain and various other cities in Connecticut, and then she would have in the summer she would have a week or two off, and she would come and could stay in the convent in Greenwich, the Catholic convent by the church, connected with the church, because she was never allowed to stay at our house, and she could never come to visit without another nun with her, ever. And Sister Maria Anita was her very, very close friend, and it must have been for 30 or 40 years at least, that every time Aunt Irene came to visit, Sister Maria Anita would come with her. She was never allowed to be alone.
So does that account for all of the aunts now? What about Aunt Rose?
That's Daddy's side of the family.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Aunt Rose and Uncle Tom were Daddy's siblings.
Okay.
But that accounts for all of Mother's family.
Okay.
So, with the exception of, there was a great Uncle Michael. And I always thought it was so wonderful to have a great uncle, because I hadn't had any grandparents. And once, I don't know how old I was, but I was very, very young. I remember we went to Newport, and I think it was just maybe my mother and my sister and me. And I remember this old man sitting in the sunshine on the front steps of a house. And that was great Uncle Michael, and that's the only time I ever saw him.
And they were all O'Sullivans?
Yeah.
Do you know where in Ireland they came from, or in how many generations before did they come over?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Mother did have one English relative that she talked about, Isabel Potts, or ancestor, but she really liked, I mean, Mother was kind of funny because she was a bit of a snob, I would say, and maybe that sounds denigrating. Some of it might have come from having been brought up in Newport. Of course, she had nothing whatsoever to do with Newport society, but one could see what was going on and everything.
And her father was the steamboat operator?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he had a steamship line.